Campus Deep Dive. This is season 2, episode 2.
So, I am your host, Centel McCoy, and I am here with a very special guest who will now be introducing themselves.
What's going on, guys? I'm Casey Gregg, Intel the Builder for those who know me and closest to me. Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
All right, so on Campus Deep Dive, we like to start with a very simple but complex to some question, and that is, how are you doing today?
Oh man, I could say good. That's the most common answer, but I'm gonna say tired but consistent. Yeah, tired but consistent.
That's nice and concise. That's a good way to put it for sure. And going into it a little bit further, I'd like to ask you, who is Casey? Or as I have come to know, Intel the Builder.
Wow. Casey is the broken child. That's who Casey is. Casey is the misunderstood broken child that has some mishaps in his life. Intel the Builder is the more healer version of Casey. Yeah.
That's a powerful answer right there.
For sure.
All right. So speaking on that, you kind of touched on it a little bit. So that's kind of perfect.
Okay.
So
Let's
what
get
was
it.
your upbringing like?
Oh man, it was unstable. Very unstable. Parents was not in the military, but my dad been in the DMV area since like 90, probably late 80s. I think me and my mom sent me and my brother up there with him probably when we was like 7 or 8, so maybe like 92, 93. And just very unstable. No structure, no discipline, kind of didn't have no rules coming up. And just been in the inner city, just getting into stuff. But it was probably like most urban city kids, you know what I mean? Seeing a lot of drugs, crime, things like that growing up. So as an adult now, I would just say pretty unstable. No guidance at all.
So as far as the family life, like what played a factor in the way you grew up? Like there was no solid role models.
No solid role. The solid role models was the guys in the neighborhood. And most when you in the inner city, the guys in the neighborhood are pretty much doing what not to do. Basically selling drugs, violence, whatever they can get their hands on to make money. But in return, it kind of like tore down the community, left a last impression on me. So yeah.
So to piggyback off of that as well, as far as your upbringing, another piece of it that I wanted to think about is like school.
Yeah.
How was that in your area?
Man, school was dope. I did pretty good in school. I never failed a grade. I think school just didn't keep me interested. I think it became a little easy for me to the point where I got bored with it and I stopped trying. And I started to go to school just to be with the homeboys and see the girls and stuff like that. But school was always there, but in my family, education wasn't prioritized. It wasn't a priority. So, I get kind of fell in the loop with the family. So, you know how they go.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I know I can't relate to the extent that you're saying, but for me with schooling, it was bad around 8th grade. That's where I realized, dang, these kids really don't know what they're doing. And I'm the smartest one in my group, quote unquote, at the time, because it was a small circle.
Yeah.
Me realizing, dang, they really don't know what they're doing. They don't know where they want to go in life. I don't know where I want to go in life. So maybe I should join them. It was a tough transition, but luckily one of my teachers saved me. And she sent me to the advanced kids class.
Yeah.
And that really opened my eyes to what it looks like to be in a different group than what you're used to. Like my environment was kids who wanted to slide guns under the car.
Right.
After school, just go beat up some random people, just steal stuff from stores. But luckily, that one teacher, I remember her name, Miss Edwards, she really saved me.
Right.
So I relate to a certain extent. But continuing off of that, what is something that changed your life forever?
Oh man, there's several things that changed my life forever. Of course, I would say the prison sentence probably pretty much changed my life forever. I used to look at it as a bad thing, but now it's a plus up. I feel like I'm one up. I got home feeling like I was behind. I felt like life done passed me by. I was making so many major adjustments just being out here in the real world, but prison would definitely change my life forever, for sure. Mm-hmm. But for the better, though. I always say for the better. And to the masses, it might look like something negative, but for me, that's not what I feel. That's not what I'm seeing. That's not how I'm received when I stepped in the room. So, yeah.
Good answer. I want to ask you more about that, but I know I'll go deeper into it in a later question. So I just want to ask, like, how did that stigma of being in the system affect you growing up?
What do you mean, being in the system, just from that age all the way till I got out? Oh man, it affects you in so many ways. First of all, you don't have you in prison, you in prison. You on your own. You got to kind of figure things out. Just lucky I was around some brothers that cared about my well-being and wanted to see me develop and step out into the community and do things that they wish they had the chance to do, because most of them had life for 50, 60 years, wasn't probably never coming home. But it affected me in so many different ways, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically. It affected me in so many different ways. You could choose one and we can kind of dissect it a little bit.
Well, the aspect I kind of quickly want to go over is mentally. Like, how did that play with you due to the fact that, all right, you went through the system, right? And from my understanding, that the system creates like a molded mentality of who you're supposed to be, like to survive in it.
For sure, I got you.
How did that transfer over come back into?
It did. Okay. When I first, of course, you're young. I was 17 when I first went to jail. So of course, you easily influenced as a teenager. I was a junior in high school, and by the time I turned 18, 19, I was already in prison. So just listening to the guys that was in the county jail before I got there, they kind of molded and shaped me to be somebody who I really wasn't. But I took that into prison anyway, which causes so many other different problems that I wasn't prepared for and didn't want to face. But I became what prison was, except for a few things. Like I became extra violent. I became less patient. I just took on the mindset of just being in prison. You got to go hard. You got to be aggressive. You can't let nobody play with you. You know what I mean? Handle your business when it arises, and then you'll be all right. But that ain't worked out too good at all. Yeah.
So as far as that, the reason I asked about mentally is because I wanted to know, is there a specific person or a piece of wisdom that somebody gave you that helped change your life?
Yes. I remember we was in a situation, I was probably like eight years in, probably like 25. I probably been in prison about 8 years at the time. And I remember I was in this high alpha male dorm. At the time, my custody level had dropped. I was no longer considered a maximum security prisoner. I had dropped down to a medium security, but for some reason they had me on a maximum security prison 4 years after I became a medium. That used to get to me. So in return, I started rebellion, like bucking against the COs, like, I ain't going to my room, or y'all gonna have to do whatever y'all gotta do. But I was only doing that because I didn't want to be in that environment. Then I ran into this old head, and he was like, bro, you going home, you got a max out date. Most of us in here ain't got no max out date, and you gonna be young. And in my mind at that time, I thought I was gonna be old. I'm like, bro, I'm gonna be 35 when I go home, man. I'm gonna be old, bro. Like, I'm not trying to go home like that. He was like, man, the more you fight it, the harder it's gonna become. Embrace the process. You here now. So when I was like, what you mean, embrace the process? And we'll get comfortable with being here. He was like, well, since you're here, develop yourself in a way where you can get back out there in the community and actually be a pillar for the community. Or you could actually be, I always use this word, but he told me this too. He was like, man, you want to get out there and be, you don't want to go out there with the mindset and saying I'm a product of my environment. Instead, you want to go out there with the mindset and say I'm a product for my environment. You understand what I'm saying? So I kind of mold and shape myself after that. Like, you know what, I'm here now. I'm gonna develop myself in any way possible so I can get out there and talk to somebody that was my age in that situation and kind of help them avoid some of the things that I didn't avoid, because nobody was there to talk me through my emotions in my situation. So,
That's real powerful. So, to get a more in-depth understanding of your time in the system, I would like to know, what was life like behind bars?
It was horrible, man. That's one thing I always notice too when I'm listening to these rappers, these rap dudes. They always talk about, when even the ones that go to prison, they just be talking about like it's fun, or I guess because they was able to get access to a phone or was able to get a little bit of marijuana or cigarettes or something. They act like, oh, it's nothing. But man, that's the biggest lie ever. They don't tell you about this constant stabbings. They don't tell you about COs getting snatched up, held for hostage for 12, 15 hours with a National Guard got to come in with all this tear gas and stuff, just spraying the whole dorm so they can get the situation under control. They don't tell you about being locked down in that cell for 3 years at a time in one run, and before you can even get out to breathe. They don't tell you about so many things that go on, the food. They just don't speak about it. It was horrible, man. I did have my moments where it was like cool, it was okay, but it was never a time where it was like, yes, I'm happy. Like, you know what I mean? Nah, it was never that. You know what I mean? Because as you grow, like I said, I was a teenager, but as you grow into your manhood, you start to realize nobody likes to be controlled. Nobody, a man telling you to shave your face, or a man telling you to walk inside a line, or you can't walk on the grass, or stuff like that, you literally lose your freedom. The only thing you have freedom of is your mind. You know what I'm saying? And I tell brothers, as long as you can live in your mind in a situation like that, you'll be okay. Well, yeah, so yeah.
That's beautiful stuff right there.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that, for me personally, if I'm being honest, like outside of the talk show, everything, it's just because growing up, that's one of the things I never really wanted to experience.
Yeah.
But I knew it was a possibility.
Very high possibility.
Right. I watched the video from school to the prison pipeline that really changed my perspective on things, and man, just hearing what it was like. I definitely
Yeah, it's not worth it.
Not at all. I don't know how people glorify that.
Yeah, and they do. For some reason, if I could say this, for some reason in the black community, especially with young black boys, when we get shot or when we do the shooting or we go to prison and come back, for some reason, these are stripes. It's like, yeah, I done shot. So his peers will start to glorify him for that. Or he done got shot and he healed up and he bounced back. His peers will start to glorify him for that. Or he do this prison bid and he come home. The peers will glorify that, like, bruh, like that, or but that's just so, I hate that we have that. It's an unspoken ritual in the neighborhood. I would like to say it's an unspoken urban ritual in our neighborhood. We don't even really think about, because the square never gets no attention, but I love the squares. That's who I am today. Like the square, like I love it because, they are the most brightest, they the most intellectual, creative, all that stuff like that. So, yeah.
So with that, Tom, I wanna expand what you were saying earlier about how it changed you after you get out. Because you've been out for how long?
I've been out of the physical prison for 4 years, but I've been off the sentence for 2 years. So when I got out, I had to do 2 years on probation, so the sentence was still going. So I maxed out the sentence like 2 years ago. Yeah.
So what I wanted to know is not even just mindset shift, because we kind of touched on that a little bit. The financials, like how, just to give people like a real understanding of what they're getting into when they do this. Like how was the financials, the environment, the friends, opportunities, etc. How did that change once you got back out into this atmosphere? How did it shift? Like what did you gain from, like, did financial opportunities become harder to get once you came out, or?
Yes, definitely. Once you get that conviction on your record, they call it disenfranchisement. You disenfranchise. I always say this out loud. 1 out of every 3 black boys end up with a conviction on their record. It's more black men in prisons than they are on college campuses. So a lot of these things, from my own studies and going through with my own experience, a lot of these things systematic. But getting back out here with that conviction on your record, everything's hard. Nothing's easy. Depending on the type of charge you got, they don't even want to give you emergency food stamps to feed yourself. Even applying for certain housing, I just now was able to get in a situation where I'm renting to own, but apartment complexes, once you check that conviction box, they have a right to say, no, we can't allow you. Even with jobs, certain jobs, I had to change my major actually, because I knew that with the conviction on my record, no matter what I did in school, it wasn't going to get me to the next level because of the conviction on our record. But it strikes, definitely strikes against you. You're going to have to go a little harder. You're going to have to develop that mindset, I will not be stopped. You know what I mean? But it's definitely hard as a convicted felon. I think most people around me don't realize that. A lot of times I'll be going into these spaces or situations, they were like, well, won't you just do that? And I'm like, yo, I'm not the average, black man right now. You know what I'm saying? I got a conviction on my record, so a lot of these things, it's not going to be feasible for me. So, yeah. I was forced. I always tell people I'm an entrepreneur by force, not choice. I didn't come out saying I'm finna be an entrepreneur. I got to do this. But it became a time where I was trying to get this job, applying for jobs. I had a kid. At the time I was a family man at that time, so bills coming in. So it was like, I got to figure something out because these jobs keep telling me I can't work. And I didn't want to settle for a plant job. I always felt like no offense to people that are working factory jobs, plant jobs, but in my mind, I was bigger than a plant job. I didn't want to spend another bid in 20 years in somebody doing plant jobs. I just didn't want to do that. So I just boots on the ground running. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a perfect run over too, because you mentioned your son, and that was actually the next part that I wanted to bring up.
Baby.
So, man, that was a perfect bridge. How did you change for your son in a way that he would attain the proper nurturing to where he wouldn't go through the same thing that you?
I didn't want to say I just learned how to father from what my dad didn't do for me, but that was a vital part to it. Me constantly reading, understanding manhood, understanding the attributes of a father, understanding the role or position of a father. Just me constantly putting myself in that position to learn and grow so I can be better for him when I do have one, but now that he's here. But yeah, it was just making sure that I'm, you are the example. I always say children don't listen to barely nothing they hear. They only gonna respond to what they see. You can tell them all day, don't do this or it's bad for you, but if you're doing it, that's gonna go out the window and they're gonna repeat what they see from their parents. So I just try to make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. That's why I bring them on campus and stuff like that. So
has there ever been a situation where you felt there was like a parental gap to your child, like to where you was like, dang, he just, I don't know what to do?
Yeah, like frustrated. Man, I just went through, my boy will be 3 next month. And man, I just probably like a week ago, man, I had he annoyed me in a way he never did. Like, he aggravated me. He was just getting on my nerves, and I never experienced that. I'm a new father. I don't have no other children but him. And I remember in that moment, my sister called and I answered the phone. She was like, what's wrong? And I was telling her what's going on. And she laughed. She's like, it's going to be. I'm like, you laughing? I'm serious. Somebody need to come get him because I'm trying to do this. But after I got off the phone with him, I realized, like, he's doing everything he's supposed to be doing. He's supposed to be clinging. He's supposed to be daddy, asking a million questions. He's supposed to be throwing little temper tantrums. It's up to me to stay patient, stay consistent and persistent to help him understand his emotions at that age. You understand what I'm saying? Because say he's 2, about to be 3. He's in that curious mindset. So in that moment, after talking to my sister, I calmed down. Was like, you know what? How would I want to be handled if I was him in that moment, at that age? And I just conformed. It was too easy after that. It was like, let me just cater to him real quick. You know what I mean? Without trying to, I don't want to spoil him because he's a young black boy that's going to be a young black man, and he's not just going to get his way. So he got to understand that his emotions are valid, but just know how to control your emotions, compartmentalize, and still execute throughout your day type situation. So,
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Fatherhood is very essential within our community.
It's sacred, yes, definitely.
So at any point being back in, as they say, the real world, I guess, do you feel that with the time you did spend, did you feel that you missed out on anything important?
Yes, and I'm still dealing with that. I go to therapy for that because in my mind, I'm 20 years behind, right? So it's like, and then I strive not to compare, but it's sometimes you can't help it. And I look at other men that's 38 in my age, it's like, it's either, bro, you wasting time. What are you doing? What have you done? What have you accomplished at this age? You've been out here long enough to be putting in that work. I know things happen. You make decisions based off situational things, but that's very frustrating because sometimes I can look at a man and he, in my mind, where he's supposed to be at a certain age, it's like, yeah, I can't be around buddy. Like, yeah, but I never associate with him because that's not my type of energy. But I do notice when I get around men that's my age, that's doing their thing, I'm more excited. I'm more like intrigued. Like, bro, how did you get there? I'm more like talkative because I see myself in that light. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah, I feel like I missed out on my childhood. And sometimes I ask myself, what is it? You know what I mean? Because I'm around a bunch of not children, grown. They grown, but I like being around them. You understand what I'm saying? Because in my mind, it's like I get to relive that childhood experience that I never have just through engaging, listening. You know what I mean? I'm watching y'all, so I'll tell a lot of the youngest that's around me, like, I live through y'all, bro. When I'm seeing y'all having fun and y'all thriving, I get to experience it from my lens in this body, but I'm watching y'all, so it's still making me feel like this is what I didn't see. I didn't know college existed. Yeah, you hear about it, but and where we come from, that's not even, we don't even fathom that thought. If I can say this, after I think it was our gala last year for Roots Mentoring, Marcus Jenkins did something for the ladies. And all I was thinking about was like, this was what was going on with college children. Like, I'm watching this, and I never knew that exists when I was home. I didn't know you had young ladies that was my age in college actually striving to go somewhere, because all I was accustomed to was the ones in the hood that wasn't going nowhere. But to see that, I was in my mind like, where was all this when I was home? It was there. The environment just didn't just trump my intention. You know what I mean? So yeah, I always feel like I'm playing catch up though in some sorts, and I'm trying to fix that because I'm right on time. It ain't about catching up. I'm right on time. You know what I mean?
I know it's bad when hearing what you just said, and I still feel like I'm catching up because I've been told several times that I have an old soul, but being in these newer times that I would consider newer times, even though I'm only that's the funny part. It just feels like there's so much I don't understand about this generation or certain things and customs that I'm not familiar with or understand that like everyone else does. It just makes me feel like I'm behind. So to hear you say that, it humbles me once again to be comfortable where I am and understand that my experience is not the only experience.
For sure.
Yeah, so
You know how much the world changed since 2000, since February 2003, all the way to 2020. The world took a mean change. I got out here to all these laptops and flat screens and phone. I was like, bro, I went to Walmart one time, bro, and I was supposed to get some cereal. I don't know if I'm going off topic.
no, that's good.
But I was supposed to get some cereal, and I probably been home like 3 days, but I was so happy to be home. I was like, I'll go. Let me do it by myself. And at that time, I think everybody was surrounding me like, yeah, we'll take it. And I'm like, nah, I want to do this by myself. You know what I mean? Because in my mind, it was like, I'm used to the CEO follow me everywhere I go. I'm used to somebody always overseeing me. So in that moment, I wanted my freedom. Like, I don't want you to go with me. I want to go by myself. But when I got in there, man, I was so overwhelmed because, you know, they didn't have so many different varieties or selections of cereal. You said go get the Cheerios. I get in here, they got 40 different flavors of Cheerios. So it was like, yo, what do I do next? And the most embarrassing part was when I went to go pay for it at the checkout thing, that was not around. So I'm watching everybody first because I don't want to make myself look crazy. And then I remember getting to it and I'm like, yeah, I saw how Buddy did it. So I'm gonna do it. Like I did get the scanning part right, but when it was time to pay, I was so confused and overwhelmed. And the sister that was working with there, she was looking at me like, what's going on? You all right? I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. And she's steady looking like, well, come on, let me show you. I had to finally break down and say, hey, listen, I just did X amount of years in prison. When I was out, this didn't exist. I don't know how to check out. But she was understood and she was like, oh my God, I got a brother that was in that situation. I would have never guessed. You don't look like you had, you know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, but appreciate it. But that was the most humiliating adjustment that I had to make since I've been out here in front of everybody, that I didn't know how to use the self-checkout. That was crazy.
Man, I didn't even think about that part.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So many years passed by.
Yeah.
So many
Technology.
advancements. Social media came, what, 2011, 13?
Something like that.
Major ones.
Yeah.
Man,
A lot
I didn't
too.
even think about that part.
Yeah.
That's
Major adjustments. I still make adjustments on the fly every day. I tell people, they was like, are you good now? I'm like, no, bro. One man spent half of his life in prison and then 2-3 years he's good. Come on, let's be honest. I'm not gonna lie to myself or you or nobody around me. I'm still going to therapy. I'm still making adjustments as I go. I just think I keep my head up through the process and keep going. You know what I mean?
If you don't mind me asking, you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but
I answer everything. I'm transparent, bro.
what specifically did you feel like, or do you feel like you needed or need therapy for?
Specifically just to make sure I'm processing what's going on around me correctly, because the environment in prison is completely different from the environment out here. And one of those things is the level of respect. In prison, the level of respect is at an all-time high, but here it's at an all-time low. It's things you can't say or don't do because we know it's about a respect, but out here it's like nobody cares. It's like, man, it's more respect and unity amongst brothers in prison that's supposed to be the worst of the worst. But you get out here, it's like, man, the way we talk to each other, the blatant, it's just different. It's just different. The way we handle our women. And that's one thing that kind of bothers me too. Just the way black men, young black men, older black men, the way we talk about our women, the way we handle our women. Some of the things I'm like, bro, you got a mother, you know what I'm saying? You got a sister, you got a daughter. So it's like, the men I was with back there, we don't play that the B word, certain things we just didn't do. You know what I'm saying? So it's major adjustments like that too. So that's what my therapy is for.
That's some of the stuff I'm still working on my own too, so I feel that. Continuing on though, if it's okay to mention right now, I don't know if you wanted me to bring it up, but Culturally Expressed.
That's cool.
What made you decide to create a podcast? What specific topics do you talk about on that?
I came up with the thought to create the podcast because I wanted to build a platform to bring people on to tell their stories, right? Doing it on campus, like the HBCU edition. This is something new. Culturally Expressed was just supposed to be a platform to connect people, bring them on the platform, tell their story, talk about what they're doing now, things like that. But once I got in school, it was like a whole different dynamic. I was like, yo, we might have something. And just me networking, engaging with the staff, admin, higher ed, the janitors, the kitchen workers, even in the student bodies, I realized that it's a major gap. Student athletes don't really too much mix in with the regular student population. Some in higher ed don't, it's just a major gap. I just felt like I wanted to build that platform to bring everybody on there, talk about their story, how did they get here, talk about the HBCU life, talk about the tradition and culture of the HBCU, but more so importantly, let's talk about our mental health. You know what I'm saying? Let's talk about our emotional health. You know what I'm saying? And then how we actually matriculated through the journey of being in college, or whether you wanted to go get your master's or whether you wanted to get your doctors. I wanted to bring higher ed on. I'm going to bring higher ed on the platform with student leaders, student athletes, just to have an open dialogue about what it actually takes to get to the next level. So I just feel like higher ed, provosts, professors, certain people that's already in position after going through college can be more seasoned in telling their story on how they actually got to where they at, because they go through the same things we go through too as a student. Right. But I think it's nobody really talking about it now because they done went through that and now they professionals. So it's like, I done went through that. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah. And Culturally Expressed is what it is. It's a platform to express the culture. You know what I mean? Black culture. It's going to be diversity. We're going to rent because it's other people that's here at the HBCU too. So I want to know their experience as well. So, yeah.
Powerful stuff. I just wanted to give you a shout for that because that's a great thing to
be doing.
For sure. And, any platform that does that, I would want to promote. So
for sure, I appreciate that too.
All right, so we're moving on to the advice section. So this portion is just basically from your experiences in life, whatever you wanted to say to young men, young ladies, anybody in the world. This would be the segment for that. So specific questions that I have for you right now is for young men and upcoming young men who may go through a similar situation. What's your advice to them to make sure that they don't go down the same path?
Man, I can say so much, but what I will say is for black men, emotional intelligence, social emotional intelligence, because in our community, we tend to respond with violence or aggression when we feel violated emotionally. And I always tell young men, you only respond like that because you was raised by your moms. You understand me? Like, we watch our moms be in this emotional state, going through stressful situations, whether it's bills, whether it's dealing with her boys or just keeping up with us. We'll watch her go into emotional states and she'll get to yelling or she'll get to doing whatever she's doing in her emotion. And that's cool because, she's a woman. But in return, if you don't have a father figure or a father head in the room, the son end up picking up these same characteristics and take it into the community, but he's not just yelling, he turning aggressive, he get physical with it because that's just our nature. And when it comes to certain things, we end up turning that emotion into something that's aggression, and then we end up taking that out into the people in the community. So I would tell people, man, have some understanding on who you are, prioritize your prioritize your mental health, make sure you have emotional intelligence when it comes to you and the people around you. You're going to grow through what you go through. Just never quit. Yeah, that's something I like saying. So.
And there's a specific young man that I think, I don't know if I should say this right now, but I'll just say I want to bring him for an upcoming event.
For sure.
He's one of my prospective mentees that I'm working on right now at a school, a middle school. And all I think is he needs proper guidance and an outlet for his environment, because I can be there all day at school talking to him about great things, but when he goes home, he's back in that same environment. So what I was wondering and asking for advice from you specifically is how can I connect with him in a way to where even when he goes back to his environment, he'll want to remember what I'm telling him?
That's tricky. That's one thing that's going. And mentoring, when you mentoring someone, they only with you for a certain part or section of your time, and then they back into, like you said, the environment it is, and depending on their age, it differs. For somebody that age, I would just stay consistent and stay persistent, because with our boys, you got to stay consistent. If you're not consistent, they'll watch you drop off just probably like their dad did. So it's like a trigger, like, oh man, you ain't talking about nothing, man. You was just doing whatever for whatever reason, but stay consistent, stay persistent, and make sure you give him the outlet that he needs. And if I could say this about environment, my dream was to retire in the military, in the Marines, and then come home and be a police inside of my community so I can look out and for my homies. But environments oftentimes trump intentions. If the environment not conducive enough for you to be what you see in your head, then it's going to be hard getting to that unless you just say, you know what, I'm leaving this environment. But how many children can afford on their own just to leave their environment? So,
right.
Yeah,
that's the tricky part about it. So the last portion is advice for yourself. And I want to preface this by saying specifically advice for yourself as a child, teen, adult, and to a man. So if I could get those pieces of advice part by part, that would be a great closing.
I could tell myself as a child, the Casey as a child, I would say it's okay to be emotional because I was the emotional kid. You can yell at me and I would cry. You understand what I'm saying? And then, when you're growing up around boys, brothers, cousins, that's not cool. So, but I would tell myself it's okay if somebody hurt your feelings or violate you in a certain way. It's okay to kind of take a step back, cry if you have to, adjust, and you're going to be fine. I would tell myself it's okay to have feelings. Right. It's okay to have emotions because as boys, we don't get taught that. We get taught that you can't cry. You got to suppress that. You know what I mean? So I would tell myself it's okay to have emotions as a child, but as a young adult, I would say just get out of my head. A lot of times when you're up and coming in them 20s, late teens to the mid 20s, a lot of times we be in our head too much and we end up overthinking the situation or not doing what we say we're going to do. So get out of my head and get in the game. You know what I mean? Just trial and error. So whatever I'm thinking, if it is calculated and it sounds good, get in the game, try it out. If it don't work, regroup, try it again. Just get in the game, get out your head and actually give yourself a chance to manifest whatever you see in your head. And if I could tell myself in this moment right now, because there's some things still going on, like things still going. I'm telling myself now, breathe, it's okay, just keep going. You know what I mean? Like I always, and it's crazy. I just told somebody this the other day. They was like, bro, I don't know how you getting through, because they know some personal situation. I was like, man, I treat it like the prison bed. I got my routine. I wake up every morning at 5:30. I stretch, get my little tea, listen to my motivational speeches, go to school, stay on campus most of the day, get my boy, and repeat the process. Same thing like prison. Just stay locked in that specific process that you see yourself doing. If you stay locked in your process, everything outside of that wouldn't even bother you, wouldn't shake you. You'll just, because you're on your mission. So yeah, just stay locked in the process.
Yeah, and close to closing, I just wanted to let you know that the reason I asked you majority of these questions is because there's somebody out in the world in every stage that I just mentioned.
Yeah.
So by you saying all those pieces of advice, you literally could be helping younger versions of yourself and current versions of yourself. So that's very powerful. To be able to look back at all those years you may have missed, you could be helping somebody avoid those mistakes.
For sure. Avoid
those issues that maybe they just needed a word of advice from somebody like yourself who has been through that. So it is always important.
Yeah, I definitely, I wear this uniform. I wanted to, if I could, I wear this uniform on campus like once a week, but it's a political statement. If Casey had to do it, I probably would never do it, but it's bigger than me. The fact of the matter is, I gave the statistics earlier, 68% of high school dropouts end up in prison. 1 out of every 3 black boys end up with a conviction on their record. We can go on and so on, but I wear this for people to say, hey man, why you wearing that? So I can give them statistics and let them know that, like you said earlier, the school to prison pipeline is real. You have the greatest opportunity at your feet and your hands right now. So manifest it, like tap into it. And so you can be everything that you're striving to be, because if you don't, your chances out there as a black man and staying free or even just to live is slim. So,
right.
Yeah.
So before we close, this is actually the last part. Anything else you want to add or let the world know before we close out?
Self-advocacy is key. Anytime that you're in a situation and things are not going right, don't be afraid to open your mouth. Your throat has authority. Your voice has authority. Authority in it. So speak. Self-advocacy is everything, and never forget who you are. You know what I mean? Never forget who you are. You always got to know that even though you might be dealing with imperfections or flaws, but you are who you are for a reason, and you're still valuable. Just never forget that in any space that you go in. Yeah.
Man, I enjoyed it.
For sure. I definitely did.
No, I guess that concludes another episode of Campus Deep Dive. I've been, formal for the past 30, 40 minutes, but going back to myself towards the end. And anything else, Casey?
Yeah, tap into the podcast. This man is doing amazing work. I got to give you your flowers on your show, but you are doing amazing work. You inspired me to get out of my head and get in the game with your show. Yeah, really. I talked to Wes about this. I see you moving around a lot. I've went to you on this trip at Clemson, to the Clemson University. I think it was the Black Male Summit. And I remember you saying, man, you think I should I think you asked the group, do you think you should record? And I was like, yeah, bro, this your show. This is what you talking about. Go get this content. But I was really telling you that so I can motivate me, because I was in my head. And I'm like, man, I'm kind of nervous. But if it wasn't for your show, I probably wouldn't even have it off the ground, man. It was constantly watching you and understanding who your personality is. It was like, man, this brother, you know what I'm saying? If he can get up there in front of these cameras and these lights and be social with all these people, knowing who he is, man, I know I can too. So I wanted to give you your flowers because you helped me get out my head and get in the game, man. Yeah, for sure.
That means a lot. Yeah. So, all right, with that being said, this is the official closing of Season 2, Episode 2 of Campus Deep Dive, and we will be back.
Let's go.